Hello, everyone. I'm Kasia Griffiths, a biological dentist from Dental DNA, and I am very pleased to introduce today my special guest, the current president of International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology, IAOMT, Dr. Charles Cuprillem. Hello, Dr. Cuprillem.
Hi, how you doing, Kasia? Great to be here.
Thank you for agreeing to come today, join the interview, and answer some questions regarding the biological dentistry. When I was looking into your biography, I have realized that you took the biological and eco approach quite in an early stage of your dental journey. Was it anything what happened that you have chosen to become eco-friendly or biological dentist?
Well, with me, it was more when I decided to open up my own practice back in 2011. My wife has always been very eco-friendly, very green, very organic, very and at first when we first got married and we were doing a residency, and I was doing my residency in Brooklyn. She would go to the store and buy the organic, and I would kind of get a little flabbergasted because it was more expensive, and as residents you don't have a lot of funds. So I was like, why are we buying that? And she's like, no, we have to do that. So she's always been that north point, and it was something that was installed in her at a very early age from her father. So I kind of learned from her, and went from there, and it started incorporating into our married life and to our family life with the kids and how we do things in the house. And originally, the whole idea of the practice was to do a green dental practice. I had no clue about biological dentistry or holistic dentistry. I knew that I hadn't placed an amalgam since my board exam here in Florida because, they're not pretty and I just don't like using it. I mean, I went to school in the University of Puerto Rico, and I'm from Puerto Rico, and we had to use amalgam. They still use amalgam a lot in Puerto Rico, although that is starting to phase out. But that I never wanted to really deal with it. I had amalgams that I didn't like the way they looked and they were breaking, and so it wasn't so much that I went biological, but I just didn't do any amalgams. It was all composite, and then also in 2018 with in 2008, sorry, with the economy crashing and metals getting too expensive, everything went to all zirconia, all porcelain crowns. So it was kind of like the economy forced us into a healthier environment. And when we opened the office in 2011, we wanted to do a green concept. So it was all about, avoiding any kind of, excess waste to the planet, avoiding the effects that we would have over the planet, especially mercury being the fact that dentists are the #1 pollutants in the world when it comes to mercury pollution.
That's right.
All of that was about very important for us to do that. And so we started a green dental practice. We were doing big time recycling programs and all the other stuff. And at the time, there was an association here in the States called the Eco Dentistry Association. And they were like the Green Dentistry Association.
And you
Didn't
were
last very long. And I became a member, and Fred and Ina, who ran that organization until it never gained too much traction, so it kind of disappeared. They were doing what they call green doc certifications. So you kind of like here in the States, we have something called a LEED certification, which is through the government, where they certify your offices or your building or your company as following eco-friendly processes and all that. So when I did everything, I wanted everything to be as LEED as possible. And we did the green doc certification, and we got gold status. And that was kind of how we went in there. So one of the things that you have to get that green doc certification is amalgam separator. And when I was building the office, I asked for it to be built as green as possible, but they did not install an amalgam separator. So that is where the journey to biological started, because I had to start researching amalgam separators. And that put me down a bit of a rabbit hole. And I started realizing that I remember that my grandmother, who had amalgams on every one of her teeth, in her older age, she could barely hold her hand still. It was tremoring. And I started noticing the same with me. I was removing amalgams with no protections. I was just using my paper mask and suction. And I even remember that one time I was actually approached by a chiropractor here in my area, and he was going, "I need somebody who does amalgams safely." And I kind of looked at him and said, "What do you mean by amalgam safely? It's just called suction." Right. And I was being very, very, very close-minded. And funny story about that is later on, that chiropractor came to my office as a patient, and I had to apologize because at that point I had changed the way I saw things. And that my journey started there. I found out about the amalgams. I was looking for amalgam separator. I end up on Facebook meeting Dr. Matt Young, who has since passed. And I start following him, and we became friends. And it was just an interesting scenario where he became my mentor. I started following SMART protocols, and I still wasn't a member of the IAOMT. I wanted to see what this whole thing was. I got a Dentaire vac from a used equipment salesman, and he gave it to me. He goes, this came from some office that was doing air abrasion, and they're not using it anymore. Check it out and see if you like it, and then we can make a deal. And then he ended up giving it to me because I referred him to some other friends of mine that bought some equipment. He said, "You know what? Keep the machine." And then now I have like an antique Dentaire vac, one of the original ones that Michael, the guy who sells Dentaire vac here in the States, he's like, "I want to buy it from you." I said, "No, I'm keeping it. It's big and it looks like a dinosaur in the whole 9 yards, but it does the work." And he still makes the filters for it. So I'm going to keep my old machine because that's the one that took me in this direction. So from there, I joined the IAOMT in 2015. I started going to those meetings, which are amazing. And I don't know, eventually got involved in committees, and the international committee is the one that I'm very involved with. And I'm on that one. And we do a lot of that. We've done those conferences in Bled that were amazing. We haven't done one since.
Yeah.
That's where we met. And we haven't been able to do another one since, but I can tell you that we are in the plans. So earmark 2015 for a possible international IAOMT meeting in Istanbul. I guess I'm announcing it here. It's still in the works. But we're pushing to have one because we really need to have some official IAOMT meetings, because we have certain requirements for SMART and other accreditations that requires going to a meeting. And it's also good because, at least for those members from this hemisphere, going to Europe, learning from European speakers, seeing what other people are doing makes us better biological dentists.
That's right.
So that's kind of how, so I progressed, and I started doing amalgam safety. I removed fluoride from my office. I then did an integrated biological dental medicine course through the American College of Integrative Medicine and Dentistry in New Jersey with Dr. Phil Malika, and I got my
ozone.
Well, I did the ozone, but this is a little more. His course is it takes about 2 years to complete, and it takes you more into the integrated biological dental medicine side. So you're doing German biological medicine, you're doing homeopathy. We're talking the theories of Alfred Pissinger, and all this, and it opens up your mind to how the mouth is the portal to the body and can have an effect over everything else. So it's integrative. It brings it all together. Then now, that rabbit hole has led to another one. And, luckily, because I do know Spanish, I'm actually doing a master's degree in neural therapy through the University of Barcelona right now.
Lovely.
So, like I said, it's all about how, they talk about holistic dentistry or biological dentistry. Now they're calling it functional dentistry, integrative dentistry. We're giving it so many names that we're making it difficult on each other. But biological holistic dentistry, whole is the whole of the body. That's where holistic comes from. Holistic doesn't come from not taking x-rays, not using traditional dental materials, but it's all about how we can focus dental treatment on how it affects the whole and how we can look at materials and how they're toxic to the whole, and change the materials that we use in the processes that follow.
That's right. Charlie, you have mentioned the mercury-free and mercury-safe. Could you explain what's the difference?
Well, mercury-free is basically just saying that you don't use mercury in your office. So I've been mercury-free since 2003, right?
Okay.
So, but I've been mercury safe since about 2013. So again, like I mentioned, in 2013 is when I started this journey of following the safe mercury amalgam removal protocols. Now, SMART, which we'll talk about a little later, is the safe mercury amalgam removal technique established by the IAOMT in 2016. But you know, so that's the biggest difference. So you can be mercury safe, right? Sorry about that. You can be mercury free
Mhm.
and just not place mercury, right? So you're not placing mercury fillings, you're not using mercury, so there you're mercury free. Most dentists today and age, I think, are mercury free. I don't think mercury is being used too much, at least here in the States and in Puerto Rico, where I'm from. They've moved towards composites, but it's more from a cosmetic scenario, not so much from a health standpoint. But being mercury safe is where now you're protecting yourself, the patient, and for me, what's important, because that's where I started, the environment, from the effects of toxic mercury. So
That's right. You know, IAOMT is mainly known in Poland for the SMART. And I am really happy because in the time we're talking now, Poland actually recognized and accepted the SMART protocol. A few weeks ago, it was announced that if anyone wants to safely remove amalgams, should look for the SMART technique in the dental offices. And I am really pleased because it shows that times are changing, that this was introduced almost 9 years ago by IAOMT, is now also in Poland and is accepted. So I am really happy because people are more aware of the dangers of amalgams. And Charlie, do you think we could discuss the dangers, both for patients and for the dentist, associated with mercury in the mouth?
yeah, we can go over that, and it's great to hear that Poland has changed their direction, and they're moving towards utilizing SMART, and it's really cool that they're endorsing SMART as the direction to go. You know, I've been doing some work through the environmental committee with the IAOMT, which I do chair, although we haven't really been doing much lately because it's kind of taken off. So like, I mean, Europe, what is it? You guys are banning the production, manufacturing, sale, use of anything mercury by, what is it, next year, 2025? It's like, you know, it's leaps and bounds ahead. So it probably explains why Poland's making this point now. And it's great that we're starting to think of using SMART, because it's very important to protect, yes, the patients, but you know, the patients are just one, and they're just sitting there for one appointment. But the providers and the team and the dental office and the dental staff, and because we have to talk about the office too, the office can become a sick building. All of that is important because that has an effect over our lives, our health, and everything else. So, you know, let's go to mercury. Mercury is what? A mercury amalgam filling. So we'll call them what they are. In chemical nomenclature, right? You call something, you name it by what it has the most of. So these fillings have been known as silver fillings for forever, right? But they only have about 20% silver, and they're 55% elemental mercury, right? So I think we should call them what they are, which is mercury fillings. We can call them mercury silver fillings, I guess, if we really want that. But those fillings have 50 to 55% elemental mercury. That is known. That is in you know, safety data sheets. It's everywhere, and you know, they are installed in our mouth. And as we chew, as we brush, as we eat hot foods, we give ourselves little micro doses of mercury every single time. Every single time that you scratch a filling, a little bit of vapor comes off. And it's 3 inches from our brain. So it's the tissue it likes the best.
That's right.
Right. So it has effects over blood pressure. It has effects over neurological conditions, Alzheimer's, dementia. You know, we can even talk about certain cancers, and you know, there's nothing that mercury being present in the body doesn't affect. I mean, this is the most toxic element on the planet that isn't radioactive, right? So we're using it to what? To place fillings in our mouths because it's cheap and it's easy. And yes, I mean, let's call a spade a spade. We have to give the fact that it's an incredible dental material with terrible ingredients because you could put it you could put it anywhere and it would work for years and years and years, but at the cost of what? Right. And then on top of that, you turn around and the expansion and contraction of the material inside the tooth would cause what? Cracking of the teeth, breaking of the teeth, leaching into the tubules and causing death of the tooth, which is another aspect of biological dentistry that we'll have to cover either later or at some other time, causing the death of the teeth. And that's a problem, right? So just the patient having it in their mouth themselves, they're constantly giving themselves a little dose. Now, the reason why it's very, very important to follow something like SMART is when we are removing fillings, we're 4 or 5 inches from the patient's face, right? We're sitting in there. I mean, I remember back in the day before any safety protocols, the amalgams hitting me in the glasses, right? The little pieces of shrapnel hitting me in the glasses, and I thought nothing of it. I remember in dental school, I used to mix the capsules of it and then open them up, and you see the poof of smoke, and you'd be like, oh, it's just a powder that's sliding all over the place. And you never gave it much thought because we're told it's safe. Oh, they've been using that for 180 years, no big deal. But, you know, we have to protect ourselves because we are constantly exposed. We are constantly being exposed to these fillings, to the removal of these fillings, to the mercury coming off these fillings. It's been proven by countless studies. And, you know, the biggest one that we have was in 2019 with Dave Warwick and Matt Young and Jim Palmer and Robin Warwick. They did a landmark study that was published in, I have to pull it up on my phone because I'll forget what the journal is, right? It was published in the Journal of Occupational Medical Toxicology, right? So it was published in an actual journal. It was, you know, it was a landmark study about the effects on occupational safety. So basically dental assistants, dental providers, dentists, in regards to not following the protocols. And they talked about SMART, and they were able to demonstrate how SMART was very, very safe to protect, you know, us from getting the exposure. They showed, and there's you know, countless videos and things on the IAOMT website that shows the incredible amount of mercury vapor that's released when we put a dental drill on it. If we put a dental drill with no water and we cut dry, you're in the thousands when it comes to the numbers, right? Of the air around us, you know, of the exposure to mercury. Here in the United States, we have something that's called the Occupational Safety Hazard Association, right? So the OSHA standards is that if there's 100 micrograms in the air, milligrams or micrograms in the air, the building, not the room, the building needs to be evacuated, right? We've proven with the use of mercury meters and different things to the IAOMT, when you do a removal, those numbers jump into the 600-700s. That's right. Just right above that area. So literally between the face and the belly, where the dentists sit, right? And that area just becomes really, 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 really blown up. Well, like I said, if you do it dry without any water, now it jumps up into thousands. So what the SMART technique is, it's engineering controls. And I know we'll talk about SMART a little bit later, but that's why we have to protect ourselves, because we are in constant exposure, right? And yes, everybody's different. Everybody has a genetic profile, has a different way to deal with things. Some of us, we excrete it really well. Some of us, you know, retain it too much. You know, it all depends on our allostatic profiles, right? But once we hit and we overload that allostatic load, right? It's the drop that overfills the bucket. So you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine until you're not. And then you fall off the cliff and we fall into mercurialism and all that other stuff that comes into play. You know, there's a reason why I remember when I got into dentistry, everybody would go, well, you know that dentists have the highest suicide rate?
Yeah.
Right. And I would think, and at that point, the only thing I could think of was, well, maybe it's because, you know, everybody's always telling you, I hate the dentist, I hate what you do, blah, blah, blah. So you get that in your mind, you get depressed. Well, no, we're constantly exposed to mercury, right? Mercury does what? It increases our risk of cardiovascular problems. It increases our risk of cancers. It increases our risk of depression, of Mad Hatter's disease, and mercurialism. We lose it a little bit. So it can lead to those things. So we need to try to do what we can to avoid that. So yes, we help the patients to minimize their mercury exposure so that it doesn't affect their health because they have it long run. But dental providers are exposed to incredibly high levels of toxic mercury every day, every day,
Yeah, well,
every day.
almost. Yeah. You know, I'm coming from the time when in Poland we were mixing by hand mercury fillings. So it wasn't even pop, but I was actually mixing hand, and assistant very often was squeezing this in the fingers to pass to the dentist. So the exposure was enormous. I also would add the information about mercury being toxic through changing the microbiome. We talk a lot about microbiome now, and I haven't seen a patient with a good microbiome with amalgam fillings in the mouth. So yeah, I think it's also worth to mention this. Charlie, there is more and more scientific studies and researchers going through now and available for everyone to read. Do you think the SMART protocol will be changing as the new information are coming up?
I mean, they'll constantly be adapting to new findings, right? So if something new pops up, we constantly adapt and we constantly move around. But when they set up, you have to remember the SMART protocols were set up as engineering controls. So if you really think about what the protocols are, it's mostly a set of engineering controls. It's all about minimizing our exposure to that mercury. There's other things that later on, patients can. We're dentists, right? So we stick to the dental side of it, but they could see their physicians or their integrated physicians or their allopathic physicians, whoever they want to go to, and look into detox later on. So the detox portion of mercury doesn't fall under SMART. SMART is literally what it states: safe mercury amalgam removal technique. Right. And it's all about how we perform the procedure to do it as safely as possible. And it's all about engineering control. So if you think about what SMART is, and I know I'll tell you back on your question, we can kind of go over the protocol. What is the protocol? Right. So the protocol is establishing, again, engineering barriers and processes that will help protect the patient. Those can involve, it's really simple. We start really easy and really simply. Minimum on there, and it's not the minimum that you can have because you have to have everything else, but we have to have a dental dam. So when I do an amalgam removal, patient comes in, the first thing that we do, we seat them in the chair, we get them numb, right? And then we have them do a rinse with either activated charcoal. Some people use zeolites. It depends on what you want to use, but this uses to, basically now we have, a rinse in the mouth that's going to help protect against any potential exposure, right? Then we start the process of covering the patient. This is when I tell patients that if they're claustrophobic, they have to kind of go to the Zen place. And we use some lavender oils on the things to kind of calm patients down. But we have safety glasses on the patient. I use a face drape on the patient. I put an oxygen hood over their nose. That, there is some controversy over whether it should be oxygen or if it should be ambient air, because supposedly there are some studies that say that oxygen can cause mercury to be pulled through the blood-brain barrier a little bit easier. But what I like using the hood, right? So it's basically like a nasal hood, and the patient has a bubble of 100% oxygen that completely covers that area so that none of the other stuff can get through. And we set it at about 4 or 5 liters, whatever the patient feels comfortable. So you put the oxygen, and it can be positive pressure oxygen, it can be a mask, it can be whatever. I like using, like I said, the cannula, not the cannula, the nasal hood that covers the nose, so it creates a bubble of oxygen around the nose. Then we put the face drape, the safety glasses, the head drape over the top. There's a full body drape that goes over the body so that the clothing is not exposed to any mercury, so that the hair is not exposed, the face. Basically, when you look at a patient, all you see is covers and a tooth through the hole in the rubber dam. Because you have to have a rubber dam in place, and it has to be a non-latex rubber dam because mercury will go through latex. So all right, so you're doing a non-latex rubber dam. You're doing all those coverings. So now we have the patient covered up. Again, remember, engineering controls, right? At the point of service where we're removing, we're going to put the high vacuum
Mhm.
suction. There was a little bit for a time there was a device called the cleanup, but they no longer make it anymore. So, you know, that was part of SMART. It was a recommendation, not a requirement.
Yeah, I still have
But
some.
so,
I got them
well, you got,
from Sweden. Sweden was doing them for
well,
some
then you
time.
got to hold on, then keep ordering or holding on, because I don't think you can get them anymore. I do know that there's another company called Dove, I think, that they have like it's like a small, it's a suction tip that has a small amalgam separator.
Oh,
So that's available also to be on the suction.
I
But
haven't.
so I I just use the high vacuum, right? So I put the high vacuum at the point where I'm removing. I put the saliva ejector behind the dental dam
Mhm.
as an external trap. So now if anything happens to get through the dam, which I seal very well, if something gets through, gets caught with the saliva ejector, and then on top of that, you have either a Dentair vac or a Air IQ. Those are the two that are actually accepted, because during COVID, a lot of these vacuums came out, but you have to make sure that you have a vacuum that has a HEPA filter, a carbon filter, and a mercury filter. Right? If we don't have those filters, it's not good enough. And then that's an external vacuum that literally sits right under the chin of the patient. Sounds like an airplane taking off. It makes the environment very loud.
That's right.
And I explain that to the patient. I tell the patient it's going to be loud in here. You're going to be covered up. You know, I just tell them sometimes I'll even put headphones on the patient and give them some music. You know,
That's
something to calm them down. There's some, we have some protocols called like New Calm that just kind of helps them take like a little Zen space and all that.
Oh,
And then we turn on all those vacuums, and now we have all the engineering controls. There's another recommendation that if you have it, there's an ionizer
mhm.
that you can have that throws negative ions across the field to a plate. But again, given that we were never ever to prove the science, it's a recommendation. It was never a requirement.
Mhm.
So the requirements of SMARTs are patient cover, full cover, oxygen, supplemental oxygen, non-latex dental dam, suction at the point, external suction, saliva ejector behind it, doing the rinse ahead of time. And then I actually add, again, this is a recommendation, but it's not in the product protocol. There are some hand creams that are used for people that work with mercury to help protect against any absorption, called a HGX cream. And I just put that in the dental dam as an extra layer. So the patient's ready. Now we have to drape ourselves, right? So head cover, full body drape, nice respirator mask with a mercury protecting can. There are some masks that are they're charcoal masks that are formulated for mercury protection. I know that when I went to Swiss Biohealth, Dr. Voles is talking about one that's gold. That's the one that he uses. It's not part of the SMART protocol, but I'm just talking about different ones that are available in Europe. So he has that one mask that's gold. There's a charcoal mask. I like the respirators. You know, I kind of look like a firefighter. We look like we're going to space, but I know for a fact that these filters, those cans, are actually made for all of the noxious chemicals, but these are also made for mercury. So you need to get the P100, the ones that are mercury absorbing. It depends on what company you're using, what brand it is, which one it is, but make sure it's a P100, which it blocks 100%.
That's right.
And then, 99.8%, 99.8%, let's say.
Almost 100%. Wow.
So it does that, and that's what you use, right? You remove your amalgam following a chunking protocol with a lot of water.
Yeah.
And if you have ozonated water, even better. Because but again, that's a recommendation, not a requirement, because they haven't proven that science just yet. These are the things, when I talk about recommendations that aren't requirements, those are things that maybe later on, if the science catches up, then those become requirements. But if you have ozonated water, which I do, and it seems like you do, ozonated water is going to have the opposite charge of mercury. And actually what it does, it traps that vapor, makes it heavy, and drops it down to the dental dam. So you minimize how much mercury gets exposed up into the air. And whatever comes up in the air, that's what our big old exterior vacuum is for. And then you remove the amalgam, you take it out in pieces. You don't drill it out, you chunk it out. You take it out in big chunks and let that go through the suction, because if it goes through the suction, it goes to the amalgam separator. I don't have to worry about it, right? And so I don't have to worry about working on especially my amalgam separator. I use a Mars, Liberty Boss. That's the company that we have here. And they're from Canada. I love it because I don't have to service it.
That's right. This is the same with Dur. We have Dur, and it's the same. It's very, very
You don't
good.
have to open it. You don't have to
That's
open
right.
it. You don't have to touch it. You know, you basically every 2 years, depending on how much you do, they come and take it away, put a new one in.
That's right. That's right.
And after we're done, then you take all the drapes off, you do the rinse again on the patient. And I, for one, leave the vacuum on for like 30
For a
minutes
while. Yeah, that's
while
right.
to
Yeah.
scrub the air, because I don't have the possibility of opening up a window in my office.
Right.
Some offices, if you can open up your windows, actually
do
open the
open.
windows while you're doing.
Yeah.
But my office windows, my building was already built before I changed them out to smart. So
Okay.
unless I replace the windows at this point, I can't open the windows. And this is Florida; it's a little hot. But I just leave the vacuum on, and then the patient, after we're done and we've removed and we've restored and we've checked it, then the patients can go home and they can start that process of detoxification, which does not fall under SMART because, again, it's all about the removal technique.
That's
And we're dentists. So after that, then they have to see the physicians. We can recommend certain things, but they can see the physician to actually work on detox.
That's right. Oh, Charlie, this is in so much detail.
Sorry to interrupt. So sorry to interrupt. You asked about if I got into the details of SMART. I kind of jumped the gun here, but you asked if the protocols get updated. So SMART was established in 2016, and there was a scientific review that was done through the IAOMT, that you can go on the IAOMT's page and see the scientific review. That was done in 2016. Well, in 2020, as part of my fellowship project for the IAOMT, we updated those studies. So we updated it in 2020 as part of my scientific review for my fellow at the IAOMT. And eventually we'll do another update pretty soon of the science. To maintain it and keep it going. So yes, we do keep up with the science, and they're available on the website. Anybody who wants to see anything about the scientific reviews backing SMART, it's on the IAOMT's page.
I just updated mine as well with the exams. Just have to send the case now and describe and send to you. Wow, Charles, I know that IAOMT is not only about amalgams. This is such a great description of safe amalgam removal, which is just told our patients and everyone who listened to us. I think we could discuss, because I also know you're implantologist, and there's a lot of to do with integrative dentistry, biocompatibility, and all the subjects we could still discuss. Would you mind meeting again and discussing the implants, biocompatibility, and would that be okay?
No problem.
Oh, wow. I would like to thank you again, because our time is just getting to the end, and I really, really am grateful for sharing your knowledge, sharing your passion. And I'll be very happy if you could meet again and we could discuss in details the implants, ceramic versus titanium, why, and if that is okay with you.
Yeah, we can have another meeting. There's lots of stuff that we can, like I said, this is a big rabbit hole that you kind of hit. You could go from ceramic implants, you can talk about root canals, you can talk about so many things that
I know
that come into play. But like I tell everybody, the beginning of biological dentistry is safe mercury, being mercury safe, being mercury free, and the other thing is being fluoride free. It's very important that that is one of the new topics that it has been trending around for a long time, but it's really, really hitting hard because right now here in the US, there's a lawsuit following a federal report on fluoride. So fluoride needs to not be in our waters. And and like you mentioned, you updated your SMART because that was one of the things that within the last year, and it was part of one of the things that between Dr. Wisniewski or Waz and myself and part of my presidency, we wanted to make sure that we shored up. Dr. Wisniewski, he established SMART in 2016. And there were some compromises that were made to get it passed, but now we've actually taken it and we're trying to make it as bulletproof as possible so that those people that are SMART certified are truly using the equipment, are truly versed in the process, and are constantly going to meetings and taking education to maintain their education up with SMART. So we are going to make sure that the integrity of the SMART program is held up 100%.
Lovely. Thank you very much. And I
You're
hope
welcome.
to speak to you soon.
We will.
Okay. Thank you.